Mhm. Well, hey there. It is that time of the month where we're going to do our market update. This time is going to be for July. Today is July 5th, and we're going to be looking at the numbers for the month of June and year to date. Answering a few questions because with the big interest rate increase, there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of people talking about the real estate market. Number one, is the real estate market correcting? That's what a lot of people are talking to us about, and really what's really going on in the real estate market. So we also had something happen here this month in the Athens area where we just changed to a brand new multiple listing service that happened about 2 weeks ago. So thankfully, I had the foresight to go ahead and uh, print off a bunch of information from the old MLS. So I've got some of the old data from years past, and I was able to source a good bit of it. There is a few changes, so it's a little different for me. We might be looking at some different things that we're going to track, but for the most part, we're going to keep it the same. Let's get started because I don't want it to be too long, but I want to get this information to out there to you. Slide my head here. As you know, we like to do year to date, and right now we're going to January 1st to July 1st, roughly. Looking back, this is the 2020 and 2021 numbers that are right here in front of my screen. Total new listings, well over 1,300, and then 1,500. And then now we're going to look at the average days on market instead of under contract. The under contract in the new MLS is a little harder to track because there's a few different categories of it. So I just didn't want to give you bad information. The total homes sold, this is a big number I want y'all to look at. 1,001 at this time, 2020, 1,223 the same time last year. And then let's go ahead and see what's going on now. Well, this is where things are different. The amount of inventory to market is still lower, and the amount of total homes sold is down a good bit. We're going to delve into that. So if you look, last year we had 1,500 listings to market, and what we're going to find out is 2021, we should probably stop looking at it because it was abnormal, it was historic, and it's probably not happening again. And then here in 2022, we've had 1,225 listings, representing about 18.5% down from the year before. And the days on market is still relatively low. We're going to start tracking that because I think we might be at a pivot point in our market to start seeing a few subtle changes. And then the average price, here's the news, these interest rates, at least yet, they have not affected the price of homes. They're still up. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. Then as you look at the total homes sold, 920 year to date versus 1,223. That is a lot less transactions, but it's not as far off from 2020, but it's still below. If you look at that 1,001 number. All right, the month of June, this is where we just take a look at only the month of June. Last couple of years, you can see the numbers of new listings were just under 300 and over 200 for homes sold. Well, we're pretty far down on the amount of new listings at 220, about 21% down, 22. Days on market, still looking strong and a little better than last year. Price, 419. We're still up there, up 14%. And there's a little bit of a telling sign there on that price that we'll get to later. And then if we look at the homes sold, we're down about 30% over last year, a little bit closer to 2020. And those are some of the things I want to start talking about is 2020 and 2022 as we go further into this market update. So here's a look at the housing market kind of in the graph form that I like to put it a little bit more visually and show you what's going on. Red is it talking about new listings. The darker gray is talking about homes sold. So if you look in the middle of this, you've got the 1,500 new listings. We had a large amount of these homes sold. And versus today, that's a 25% more last year, 25% more going on in most activity, really about 25, 30%. But let's watch our dotted line here. If you look back, this dotted line from today is a lot more in keeping on the sales with 2020. And that's sort of the narrative that I'm starting to see is we're comparing things maybe to the wrong year. And we need to understand in the context of what 2021 was and what the real estate market will be going forward. So we're going to come here and now we're looking at, just the month of June. So we're going to compare, but it's funny because even as just isolating out the month, it's the same information. Now we're looking at about 30%. The dotted line goes back. It is much closer to 2020 right now. And obviously in 2020, we had a lockdown situation in April. But as you know, the market kind of came back and we wound up with a pretty normal year as far as overall volume, even losing the month of April. So now that we've got some more data, if you remember in the report we did last month, we took a look all the way going years back. And we're going to do that again. And I'm going to kind of keep tracking it because I'm going to be really interested to see what happens with our real estate market right now, because there's going to be some subtle changes. It's not going to be the same thing. I think you might be surprised that we might not see prices fall, but we might see less activity and maybe slower appreciation. So let's look at this graph. This is the new listings by month over the last 3 years. One of the older versions of graph we've done. And, if you can see here, the last market update right here where I'm circling, it was like all 3 years met at about the same time in May. And then I was wondering, well, where's it going to go with our inventory? Well, as you can see, this red line unfortunately represents 2022, and now it's dipping back down again. And the blue line of 2020 was at a higher rate. And as you see right here, the red line and blue line of 2022 and 2020, they're a little bit more closer than what went on in 2021. So I'm making a note here, the inventory is still low. And let's just look at this green line that just went up. This is 2021, shot up in February, all the way up to here. Then it came down a little bit, but then it went back up. And what I'm trying to say is 2021 was abnormal, that rapid appreciation. If you want to say something might have been the height or the frenzy of the market, that was probably it. We're kind of going to start normalizing in a strong market, it feels like. Interest rates will obviously be a big part of it, but I do think supply will too. So this is the total sales. And if you remember, we were trending down from the last time I showed you 24 months. But look what happened in June. We actually got the sales back up now relative to 2021 and that spring, and even that surge that we had in 2020. We're still far behind. But as you can see, our sales have been so low total, they finally caught up to where we were maybe March going in and this time last year. So we've had December, we kind of caught up with December of 2021. So that's a good sign that we've seen a little bit more activity. Sorry for the typo down here. But now we're looking at the listings and the opposite trend that we saw with the sales going up. We've now got this yellow bar going back right down the wrong direction. And we're in July now. So we're probably not going to see an abundance of listings. But what we are seeing is what I'm going to get to is home price and how that's starting to flatten a little bit, or at least we think it will. Who knows what the months ahead will show. But let's look here. So we've added one more month in, and I've got these red arrows pointing to this same time in the market over the last 2 years. So let's go June to July. This is the average sold price. Look what happened in 2020. It had a big shoot up in that month that came up June and July. Here we are again in 2021, and what happened to the price? It went boom straight up, and we kind of saw that as a summer market with that month-to-month appreciation or average. Keep in mind, some of these dips are about the type of properties that sold that month, not that the property value went down, just what made up the market in that month. However, this is one that's a little different. Look at our timeline right here as we're looking June, May, June, July. That is not really a sharp increase. That's kind of more of a flat line. So I'm going to be really curious to see what happens over the next 30 days in our month-to-month market, because that might really indicate, what I think is going to happen is the rapid home price appreciation, especially at the higher level, that's going to be slowing down. It's not going to be exactly falling off. We might see some properties that maybe in March you could have gotten, let's just use a round number, 500. Now that we're in the higher interest rate climate and we're going into July and August, 500 might be 480, might be 485, might be 475. But the thing to remember, though, is it came all the way up from probably 360 to 500. So it's still a big gain. It's just we're probably going to be calming down a little bit. But what we don't really see is how values might fall if we just don't have the inventory, even with the increased interest rates. So that's our market update for this month. We're going to be getting back in touch with you pretty soon about more of a national outlook, and that probably will talk a lot about interest rates. In the meantime, this is our group at 5 Market Realty. We've got a group of agents that know the Athens area, can help you get a plan in place and really help you buy or sell a property. So reach out to anybody here, info at 5mrealty.com, 5mrealty.com, or give us a call at 706-850-4636. Thank you, and for sticking around for almost 9.5 minutes. Have a great week.